all the dialogue is improvised. In the first film and in this one, we never know what the other person's going to say. We wanted it to look and feel like a real documentary.
We've only lost 11 or 12?
11.
11 drummers.
You talk about making a film that people who did not see the first Spinal Tap, which came out in 1984, would still be able to enjoy this.
Right.
How were you able to make a film that stood on its own?
Well, I mean, the key is to try to find the reality of a story. I mean, we were approached for years about doing a sequel, and we always resisted. We said, no, we did this thing. It took on a life of its own after a lot of years. I mean, the Library of Congress put it in the National Film Registry, and this goes to 11, which is everybody talks about that now. It's in the Oxford English Dictionary. So we said, leave it alone. And we never, people would say to us, do a sequel. We always resisted. This is the truth. We never made any money from this.
Wow.
With all of the videos and DVDs and Blu-rays and foreign sales, the four of us had 40% of the net profits. And I'm not exaggerating, it's gonna sound like a joke, but each of us made, it's gonna sound crazy, 82 cents a piece.
Oh,
I'm not kidding.
So when you're approaching, when you're all back together and you're all like, the magic is back, so to speak, but because of the format, because it is so improvised, like when did you start to get a feel for like what the movie was going to be?
Well, it's interesting because all the dialogue is improvised. In the first film and in this one, we never know what the other person's going to say. We wanted it to look and feel like a real documentary. So the way we did the first one is exactly the way we did the second one. In the first one, we had a tour. They were on tour around the country, and we kind of mapped out the cities they were going to go to. And then we had a big bulletin board, and what we would do is, at the time when we did the first one, Harry Shearer was dating a woman who worked at ABC News. And I don't know if any of you remember, but there was a guy named Roger Grimsby who was a newscaster. And he had a stack of cards, promotional cards. It was a picture of him on the front, and it was on the back was empty. And so we had these cards, and anytime we come up with a scene, if we thought the scene was good and could possibly be in the film, we'd say, does this idea merit a Grimsby? Should we stick it up on the thing? Should we give it a Grim? And when we did the second one, we did the same thing. The first time, the guy who was editing us, a guy named Bob Layton, he's a great editor, he would say to me, the key to this is to get the dialogue track to work, so that it wouldn't jar you. If you're listening to it, you're just listening to people talk, because you can get away with pictures that jump around, but if the audio is jumping and weird, then it'll draw you, it'll take you out of the picture. So we basically, like I say, wrote the script with the pieces of film and the dialogue that we had, and then we put the pictures and how we wanted it. But it's a process. It's like putting together a real documentary.
The first movie just really played into so many of the rock and roll tropes that you were just talking about. And here in the sequel here, you have a couple of guys whose lives and careers played into those tropes.
Right.
How did you get Paul McCartney?
I called him up, and he said, okay. And it was that quick. Because, like I said, the film had entered the real world. Everybody in the rock world knew about these guys. They thought it was funny. They're real musicians. They can actually play. Every note that you see is played by them. There's no playbacks. It's all live, and they're very proud of that fact. They never played playbacks, never played the tracks, only live. And the thing with Paul McCartney is something that actually happened to the guys when they were rehearsing for their tour. There's a place out in the valley that is a big rehearsal complex, and the Spinal Tap guys were rehearsing for their tour, and next door, McCartney was rehearsing for his tour, and he just wandered in, just like in the movie. And we took it right from that. He wandered in, and he said, fellas, give us a tune,
How did, obviously over the 41 years since the first one came out, the technology of making movies now is so fundamentally different and advanced, for better or worse.
Yeah.
But how did those advances in technology help you make Spinal Tap?
Well, here's the weird thing about this. The first film, first of all, both of these films are ostensibly made by Marty DiBergi. I mean, that's who makes the film.
Right.
I mean, so I had to filter how this film would be made through Marty DeBerge. The first film, he had one camera. It was a 16 millimeter film camera. And this one, there were 2 digital cameras. So the question is, how much has Marty grown as a filmmaker? Is he like a hip guy using animation and things? No, he's like stuck like the guys. They haven't grown emotionally or musically. They're still in that same world. So I had to, yes, there's a few little things, but mostly it's you know, I had to shove the whole thing through Marty's sensibility.
Valerie Franco brings such great energy as the drummer. Talk about working with her and the
Oh,
energy she brought to the room.
she was great. I mean, we have, you know, it's a history of Spinal Tap. They don't do well with drummers. Drummers have a hard time staying around. And we had, you know, we choked on vomit and somebody else's vomit and died in a bizarre gardening accident, which is so weird because the drummer from Toto, Percaro, you know, he actually died from a bizarre gardening accident after. It was after the thing, and you had to, I mean, you can't make it up. But so we had auditions because, as you see in the film, Skippy Scuffleton, you know, he died sneezing to death, and so we had to have, you know, we had to have auditions, and we had the idea, let's put it out to all these famous, you know, Questlove and Chad Smith and Lars Ulrich, and the idea was they're going to turn them down because they don't want to die. They don't want to die. But Valerie came in, and we had auditions. We held, you know, actual auditions at SIR, which is a, you know, studio in Hollywood, and people came in, and she just kicked ass. I mean, she was unbelievable, and we hadn't even thought to have a female drummer, but we thought, wow, she's amazing. So we put her in there, and you know, she's you know, she's forewarned.
So, just final question for you, Rob, is what is the legacy of Spinal Tap?
Well, the legacy is, as you see in the film, even after they die, they keep going at the same level of mediocrity that they are before. Oh, here's a great thing. I'll leave you with this. So, you know, Stonehenge is a theme. They did it in the first one, and then they did this performance at Royal Albert Hall. And then in the first one, there's a tiny little Stonehenge comes down. In the Royal Albert Hall, it was too big. They couldn't get it into the theater. And then this one, you saw what happened. It fell onto Elton John. So it's a big Stonehenge theme with Spinal Tap. And this is true. If you go to Stonehenge, I don't know if you've been there, whatever, but if you go there, they have an educational center there where people go and they talk about the Genesis, where did it come from? And there's a big wall with quotes from philosophers and scientists and poets and authors. And then there's one quote that says, "No one knows who they were or what they were doing. Nigel Tufnell, Spinal Tap." So we have a legacy already.
Well, first of all, make sure you spread the word about Spinal Tap to the end continues. And Rob Reiner, thank you for a
Thank you
conversation
very much.